When I signed up to be the only human on a ship full of tentacle aliens, I expected three things. The air would be unpleasantly damp. My crewmates would occupy spaces that I wouldn't think of, so I'd need to make sure I didn't step on anyone. And I'd get a reputation as the tall one who could reach high shelves without climbing them. While these were all true, I was surprised to have my voice, of all things, treated as a special talent. It came up right away when I met the captain and greeted her with a phrase in her own language. It was all I knew, and I thought it would be passed off as a thoughtful gesture. I'd practiced the phrase on the ride through the spaceport. My pronunciation was surely terrible. But since the language honestly sounded to me like a mix of squeaks and flatulence, I considered it a success, that I could say it at all without dissolving into unprofessional giggles. My masterful effort at keeping a straight face was met with goggle-eyed surprise that looked downright comical on a rusty orange octopus-like alien. But the captain kept her cool too, introducing me to the handful of crewmates I'd be making deliveries with. The rest of the conversation was thankfully in galactic standard. They were impressed again, an hour later, when I reported a mysterious sound from the hover engine by imitating it. Kind of a faint whir, then a screech chunk. Apparently this was amazing where they came from. Who knew? I would have loved to introduce them to a parrot and really blow their minds. As entertaining as it was, my talent was just a passing curiosity as we made our rounds between planets. Something to joke about, a cure for boredom, a source of harmless pranks. Something chirped, "Is there a pest on board the ship?" There it is again. But when we made our final delivery run, my human vocal cords got to do something far more important. We were bringing construction materials to a newly terraformed moon, a place staffed with busy robots and a few stressed-out organic types there to oversee everything. They were on a schedule to get everything ready for the inhabitants to arrive. Due to an error somewhere, they'd run short on a specific type of welding rod. Thanks to us, they got them in time. But they also had another problem. "We caught some saboteurs," said Tavi, the construction head, her antennae twitching uneasily. Her species was new to me, with a strong resemblance to an earth beetle, all iridescent green and faceted eyes. Oddly pretty as bugs go, and just this side of creepy. Not that I would ever say so out loud, especially when she was telling the captain about people trying to wreck her operation. "Did they already do damage?" asked Captain Rominome. She stilled her orange tentacles in respect, paying polite attention. "We suspect so," said Tavi. "They haven't admitted to anything, but there are traces of a certain plant in their cargo hold, which is known for spreading quickly. We fear they have placed some nearby, but—" She fidgeted, rubbing forelegs together. "I just can't spare the workers to look for it. If we knew where exactly to send the workers, they could remove the problem without losing us too much time, but not if they have to explore the entire area. Could we call upon you to do another task for us?" Captain Rominome spread her tentacles wide. "But of course." For a fee. They haggled while the rest of us waited in respectful silence. I took care not to draw attention, since I was by far the tallest here, and it would look bad if I bent down to whisper to a crewmate during negotiations. I definitely wanted to, though. Of the other 4 tentacular spacefarers, 3 did excellent observational humor, and 1 was an unexpected pun master. Fweet, Nifitini, and Poe all came from the same world. Jeremy came from a multicultural hub that gave him both a non-traditional name and a delightful way with words. He was muttering something to Nifitini now, palest blue beside dark gray. If not for me, he would be the one who stood out among the rest of the crew. As it was, he was one bundle of tentacles among many. The captain wrapped up the conversation and waved for the rest of us to follow Tavi. The construction head scuttled around the corner to a bright courtyard where a spaceship waited with its hold open. Tavi stepped inside the thing, which was exceptionally small, probably a 2-seater, and grabbed a yellow leaf off the floor. She made sure we all got a good look at our quarry. I could smell it from arm's length. Minty and powerful, like weaponized toothpaste. I didn't say anything, but a glance at my crewmates' wrinkled faces told me their opinion. Not just me then. Good. Tavi gave us directions to where the ship had been captured and waved us on our way. She was a very busy, iridescent beetle alien, with much to do. Onward, crew. The captain declared, twining two tentacles together, much like a human would rub their hands greedily. Let's find some invasive plants. It was a quick flight, on a spaceship such as ours. In no time at all, we were walking among purple-green plant life, looking for anything yellowish. No luck so far. We found lots of springy moss and giant fern things, growing on all sides of a landscape studded with natural rock pillars. I assumed they were natural anyway. Who knew what the terraforming of this place had included? All I could say for sure was that the moon was nearly up to the standards of the high-end insect-like clientele, and that those folks had a neighboring clan who was still bitter about not claiming the place first. I was thinking about bug alien politics when a tentacle as rigid as a safety bar brought me up short, blocking my way like a seatbelt. Captain Romino whistled a sharp sound of alert. She held the position, blocking me on one side and Fweet on the other, while staring forward. Something tumbled onto the path, a few lengths ahead of us. It didn't look dangerous. Spotted and brown, fluffy, equipped with half a dozen limbs and no coordination. Tavi had stressed the fact earlier that all of the animals here were both small and harmless, so I didn't see what the captain was worried about. When a second one trotted over to the first, I was still mystified. They were a little weird-looking, what with the face tentacles, but who were we to care about that? Then the big one stepped out from behind a rock and roared at us. Oh, I thought. Oh no. The crew scrambled in panic while I froze. None of us carried weapons. Why would we, looking for plants in a place sworn to be safe? Even our delivery ship wasn't armed. We were no match for this kind of predator, the size of a hovercar, with toothy mandibles and tentacles that seemed designed to horrify my human hindbrain. And it was clearly protecting its babies, which played around its ankles, meeping happily. The captain shoved me forward. What? Make the noises the little ones are making, she said. This is your time to shine. Oh. I swallowed. I guess it is. Here goes nothing. With a deep breath and what I hoped were calming hand gestures, I faced off with the terrifying thing and did my absolute best. Meep. Mew. Meow. It had stopped growling and was watching in what looked like confusion. A shuffling noise behind me said that the rest of my crew had lowered themselves to an unobtrusive height and were wriggling backwards to safety. Great idea. Meep me eek. I sank into a crouch, hoping that I looked non-threatening, instead of like I was ready to spring. The creature didn't attack. The babies remained oblivious, tussling in the moss and rolling forward to bump against my arm. I didn't move. Changed my noises a little to match their play fight. They ignored me. The parent didn't. I'd been glancing down at the babies when it moved, so I jumped in surprise when an enormous paw appeared in my field of vision to bat the little ones further along the trail. They went happily, with renewed meeping. Then before I could react, the big one was behind me, fastening its mandibles around a mouthful of my shirt. Breath on my neck, squirming tentacles, bristly whiskers. It was a miracle I didn't pee my pants. I found myself hauled off my feet by the alien tiger thing and dragged down the path like a particularly long kitten. I had to grab the front of my shirt to keep it from choking me. Even my best efforts left me gasping for breath. Then the creature leapt straight up and my vision grayed around the edges. My senses returned as I lay on moss, under a fern, at the top of one of those pillars. The tiger had disappeared. Where'd it go? I wondered. Am I out of the way here? Or, My vision was full of fur and tentacles as it sprang up to the top again. I scrambled back against the fern. The creature set down one of the babies, then jumped back down. Oh dear. I wasn't food, or I would have been dragged by my throat instead of carried gently. Nope. I was family. The communicator at my hip chirped, and I scrambled for it before the tiger came back. The captain's voice came through with no preamble. You have overperformed. Tell it to let you go. I don't know what the sounds mean, I exclaimed. I'm just copying the babies, and it might eat me if it thinks I don't belong here. Understood. We'll figure something out. The tiger sprang into view again with the other cub in its mouth. I shut off the communicator before it got suspicious. To say I was uneasy about this would be an understatement. In something of an anticlimax, Mama Tiger lay down in the shade of the fern and pawed at her babies to cuddle close, including me. I ended up on my side, in the fetal position with my head against a cub and my back against the alien tiger's belly, and I tried my hardest not to be incredibly concerned. I waited. It was a long wait. Plenty of time to wonder how the saboteurs had gotten creatures this size into the hold of their tiny ship, and to wonder whether those minty leaves worked like catnip. Releasing this kind of predator here would certainly wreak more havoc than any invasive plant would. I tried to listen for signs of a plan from down below, but I couldn't hear anything over the growling purr that Mama Tiger was making, and the sound of her licking the other cub. Picturing those mandibles, I dearly hoped that my crewmates would think of something before it was my turn. They did. Oh, bless them, they did, and it was brilliant. Inspired by me. A faint chattering sound from ground level caused all three of the beasties to lift their heads like a dog hearing the dinner bell. It sounded again, and Mama Tiger stood with a chirrup that I took to mean, stay here. She flowed off the edge to land far below with more stealth than something so big should be allowed. The chattering stopped, then started again from farther away. It sounded like there were a few of them, whatever they were. There was Mama again, apparently having decided that this was the perfect time for a hunting lesson. She grabbed one baby, came back for the other, then for me. I took a deep breath and grabbed my collar. She was gentle. It was still terrifying. She clung to the side of the pillar and slid down awkwardly instead of leaping head first, which I deeply appreciated. I would have broken approximately all of my bones otherwise. As it was, I made it to the bottom with only a few bumps and a wild heart rate. The creature let me go with a pat, urging me forward. She chirruped at the babies and trotted off, her movements transitioning into the silent stalking posture of cat-like creatures everywhere. The babies bounced after her. I kept close, bending over a little and feeling silly. Did I dare run? Was this the plan? She would hear if I tried to use the communicator. Speaking of which, I thought in surprise as something caught my eye. A comm unit like mine lay at the side of the path, at roughly the spot where the chattering sound had come from. Oh, I'm starting to get it. Clever crewmates. I made a note of where it was and hurried along. The ferns and pillars were close together here, close enough to hide a family of tentacle tigers earlier and some sort of trap now. I kept my eyes open as we approached a corner to the sound of a chorus of prey animals. Mama Tiger crouched, listened, and peered around the edge. She twitched her tail, which was split in two. How did I not notice the tentacle tail before? Then crept forward in utter silence. It was frightening to watch, though balanced out by the cheerful clumsiness of the two cubs. They crawled around the corner, and I brought up the rear. That was very clearly a tarp thrown over something large, about the size of the wire cage we'd been hauling bricks in. A slit was cut in the tarp, with the flap pinned back over the doorway. All I could see inside was darkness. I heard the chattering of prey, and I was pretty sure I smelled meat on the breeze. Is that the chicken I was saving? Oh, fine. a good cause and all. I couldn't see any tentacular crewmates, but I had no doubt they were hiding close by. Mama Tiger was easing her way up to the door. I walked as quietly as I could, grateful for the moss. She reached the entrance, sniffed thoroughly, then crawled inside. I was starting to get alarmed at the lack of a visible plan. Then a dark orange tentacle emerged from under the tarp to wave at me. The captain was waiting at the door. Got it. I meeped softly and scooped up one of the babies, setting it inside after Mama. The other one went just as tamely. I heard chewing sounds from inside the cage. Then I heard an almighty clang as the door shut in my face, followed by the captain jumping down to check the lock and other tentacled crewmates appearing from all directions. Mama Tiger roared and pawed at the door, but it was solid. I stood well back anyway. Good job, team, said Captain Rominome. That couldn't have gone better. I tried to laugh off my speeding heart. It was a little dicey there at the beginning. You were amazing, the captain told me, while the rest of the crew backed her up. We would have been eaten without you, instead of alive and many credits richer. Do you know what the going rate is for a healthy family of sneak teeth? Is that what they're called? I said, still taking deep breaths. Can't say I disagree with the name. Beside the captain, Jeremy did an intricate tentacle flail. You've never heard of them? Did you imitate their calls on the first try? Yes. It wasn't that hard, I said. Kinda like a house cat. Captain Rominome held up a tentacle in declaration. Double shares of the bounty for our crewmate of the hour. There was unanimous approval at that, along with the tentacle alien equivalent of applause. Since tentacles don't make a proper clapping sound, this meant a rousing chorus of blowing raspberries. I grinned for 2 reasons. I pretended it was just for one, and thanked them humbly. We kept the tarp in place, while ferrying the brick cage back to the ship. The cage had been on the hoversled this whole time, more good thinking on the captain's part. Poe ran to get her communicator and make sure we hadn't left anything else behind. Jeremy filled me in on the relevant details about this particular species, which was endangered and difficult to relocate. I don't think anyone's tried impersonating one of their young before, he said. This might be the start of a new trend. I shuddered. Just don't ask me to do that again. Noises, yes. Being dragged by my collar up a cliff, no. I thought your species liked climbing things, he said far too innocently. That was not climbing. Climbing involves getting there under my own power, with no teeth at my neck. Picky picky. We made our triumphant return to the compound, and Tavy met us outside, having heard the news on our way over. She got a timid look at the creatures in the cage, standing back and flinching, when Mama Tiger snarled. After taking pictures of them to show her bosses to account for the expense, she paid Captain Rominome an amount that left her very pleased. We said our goodbyes and headed for space. When I first lifted the tarp to feed them, I was greeted with a chorus of growls. In response, I began setting chunks of synth beef through the bars, and did my best imitation of the growling purr that Mama Tiger had made up in her makeshift nest. A face full of mandibles and feline curiosity appeared at the bars. I waggled my fingers at her and held out more food. The babies pounced on the first pieces, meeping happily. I purred louder. Mama Tiger reached face tentacles gently through the bars and took a piece from my hand. I wanted to scritch her scary kitty head, but held out more food instead. Maybe with the next meal.